everybody. Welcome back to UptaCraft. Here we are on day 3 on our little coffee table project. Now, when I say day 3, this isn't 3 8-hour days. I've just been able to take a few hours on 3 separate days to get to this point on the project. Dodging raindrops a little bit today. I'm taking as many opportunities as I can to work outdoors as possible. The temperature's great. Just got a couple passing spring rain showers here over the past day or two. But right now it's dry and it's a good afternoon to getting some work done. I want to show you where we've landed so far. Let me turn the camera around here and we'll give you the highlights. Okay, so I'm using my table saw and the sliding table on it for just a place to put parts as I'm making them and finishing them. I wanted to try out a stain color that I think is going to work out quite nicely. It's a red oak, and I'm using like a dark walnut stain on it. It's got a nice even coat, and it's done very well with like not showing up any overlaps during the application process. I let it sit for a few minutes and then wipe the excess off, and it's got a nice even medium brown tone to it that I like and really highlights the grain pattern. So this is the arched longitudinal stretcher, I guess for lack of a better term. It goes parallel to the length of the coffee table underneath and provides some rigidity and stability to the legs. I have the legs put together as 3-piece assemblies. You can see here these are not stained yet, but it's got a nice pleasing look to it. Let me put it on the floor here and show you what I got. Okay, so looking at it from side 2, you can see the stretcher going in the opposite direction. It provides stability to the top and flatness. I have dadoed a bird's mouth cut. Well, I've made a bird's mouth cut in the legs, and I have dadoed the stretcher to set the bird's mouth cut into. Provides for a nice tight looking joint there. And I have glued and screwed the connections here, and we'll plug those holes with some matched green red oak plugs that I'll make with my plug cutters. So I've got 2 sets of these made, and I've got that center stretcher. If you'll also notice too, on each of my parts I've put a nice, very pleasing radiused finish on all the corners. So it's going to turn out quite nice, I think. I'm very happy with it, and it is roughly in line with how I've pictured it. Oh, one other thing to point out to you is if you notice with the legs, I did not leave them uniformly dimensioned. If you look carefully, you'll see that I have put a very mild curved taper on the inboard side of the legs. I think it's going to result in having it be just a bit more fine looking and not overly boxy or bulky. Let's now take a look at where we are with the pieces that make up the top. So I made an executive decision today, and I decided to get rid of all of the saw cut marks on the surface. I decided that a smoother surface is going to be the more pleasing, and so this would be half of the top, oriented top side up. And so I've got a nice, I use my hand planer and belt sander. Primarily the hand planer did a nice job with this, and did the underside as well. Now I want to flip this over and show you what's next. You notice on this end I have done a scarf type bevel on the end. It's a nice pleasing angle there. I'm going to do this on 3 sides of this material, here, down the longitudinal, and then across the end, and I'll do the same on the other half of the top. This will have the effect of, even though the table thickness is that dimension, from the edges of the table it will have the appearance of being that thick. Again, keeping the bulk and the strength and the mass of the thicker material, but visually being a bit more pleasing to look at. And what I'll probably do is just, instead of beveling or rounding, I'm just going to ease the edges with a sander so that it'll be nice to the touch. So I'm in the process of doing the scarf type bevel cuts, and you'll notice what I've done, because I'm using a hand planer. Some of the tools I have don't quite have the capacity to do this like as a single pass on a table saw. The blade is not that big. But if you look closely, you'll see that I've given myself some reference lines, like right here. That line continues the whole length of the board, and it's at the same elevation as the bottom or top, based on whatever your perspective is, the bottom of the dado cut here. So this line connects the full length of the board. And then I also have scribed a corresponding line on top. You can just make it out right here, okay? The whole length of the board. And to make it simple, what I've done is I've left myself with 1.25 inches here. This dimension is 1.25 inches, and this dimension here to this line is 3 inches. So I've used my combination square to scribe those marks on both boards. And what these reference marks do is give me a way to eyeball my hand planer to get myself down to within, sneaking up on the line, and then finishing with the sander to bring me up to the line, maintaining that angle the full length of the board. So a little wordy, but I think you get the picture of what I'm trying to accomplish. What I'll do, because it's inconvenient to set the camera up on a mount and go hands-free, I will skip the footage of this and show you the first one once I've got it down to where it is belt sanded. I'm of course going to finish with an oscillating sander and hand work just to finish it up, but the belt sander and the planer are going to get me down to the lines. Okay, so probably about 10 or 15 minutes worth of work. I'm actually quite happy with how this came out, because if you can just make it out, I'm not sure with the lighting, ends up, because I've got the same taper going in both directions, I've got a nice little 45-degree little shadow line right there on both ends. Yeah, you can see it better on this end. Yeah, feeling pretty good about how this is turning out so far. And you notice how the taper ended up finishing right out flush with the bottom of the dado here, as intended. And while I haven't sanded the edge of the tabletop yet, I really think that's going to be a lot more pleasing, the look of the edge like that, instead of seeing the whole bulk like that. On to the next steps. Okay, so what we have here are the assembled legs for the coffee table, as well as the arched longitudinal support. I've skipped through some of the more tedious footage just to spare you the watching me drill a hole and watching me run a sander. But essentially you can see how these legs have been mortised into the cross stretchers, and I've used some 1-inch pipe that I have painted a satin finish black to be a stretcher between the legs across the axis. So now comes the assembly time. We're going to put the table together. The top yet is not stained. I'm going to be doing a clear coat on that. Let me turn the camera around and show you. So these are the pieces that they're oriented approximately how the table's going to look. They might be a little closer than this. Basically the overall dimension is going to be a total of 16 inches across the table. So whatever this gap is, it's between 2 and 2/4 inches. Did I say 2/4 inches? It's between 2 and 2¼ inches. So next step here is to pre-drill and countersink some holes that I can then plug later in order to fasten these pieces of the tabletop down to the leg assemblies. So I'm going to be using a 1/2 inch drill bit to countersink, because I have a 1/2 inch plug cutter, and we'll use that to make the fasteners disappear. Okay, here are the pilot holes drilled on each end, 2 per board. Those are 5/32. That'll give the deck screws plenty of room in those holes to not let the threads grab on this material at all. Now let me go ahead and countersink with the 1/2 inch. Okay, so here's the table halfway installed. Holes are drilled and countersunk. One side of the top is installed. Now we're going to install the other side, make sure all of our dimensions are consistent, and that the two pieces end up being parallel to each other. I'll show you the finished product here in just a minute. Okay, so the table is now fully assembled, and I'm very happy with it. Let's see if I can get, okay, we got decent lighting here. Okay, so the arched longitudinal support I have let in and onto the pipe with a half round cut. Underneath it is, well, lighting is hard to tell, but anyways, it is screwed with a screw that has been countersunk into the pipe. So again, we have the legs, nice gentle taper. Got the cross members here that stick out proud just a little bit to highlight the profile and the quarter rounded ends. Really like that detail. Not to mention the contrasty between the dark stain on the base and what will be a much lighter finish on the top. Happy all around with how this is coming out. There's only one thing left to do. Oh, by the way, and you can see that the top now is mechanically fastened and all the holes have been plugged and sanded. So this is ready for, pardon that yellow jacket. Yeah, this is ready for finish. I got to tell you, I couldn't be any happier with this thing. At this time, I am not yet an affiliate. Whether I am in the future or not is another question. But I just want to let you know that this top was done using walrus oil. And I got to tell you, it really makes the grain and the color of this oak just pop, especially in comparison to the darker. It's a dark walnut minwax stain that I used on the oak legs and substructure. Yep, super happy. Also, friends, just want to let you know that I'm really interested in getting into making tables and other types of furniture and wood crafts. I'm actively looking for commissions. So until then, here's just a sampling of my handiwork. More to come from the UptaCraft shop. Stay tuned. And by the way, be sure to comment. Tell me what you think of this project and others. And subscribe. That way you'll know when I post new videos. And also, if you like what I'm doing here on this channel, one way to support me in this work and to help cover the costs of taping or recording, you'll see a link in the description where you can click the link on a website called buymeacoffee.com. I have an account set up there, so even the smallest of cash donations will allow me to go get myself a cup of coffee while I'm making sawdust and creating stuff here at the UptaCraft shop. My wife's standing right here beside me and she's laughing at me for this little plug, but hey, it is what it is. Have a good day.